everyone, it's Mimi and Weezes.
Hey guys, what's good?
Today we're going to do an episode on Malaysia Airlines Flight 370.
And how it disappeared.
Yes. So, if you don't know, back on March 8th, 2014, there was a flight going from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and its planned destination was Beijing, China. The cause of the disappearance is still unknown. It still has not been determined.
To this day!
So, yeah, it's weird. Like, this is one of, like, the biggest, what do we want to call it? Avian mysteries, I guess. Like,
yeah, it's like some Bermuda Triangle shit.
Yeah. It's really weird. It literally just disappeared. Well, at first, when I heard of all this, I started thinking, same thing, like, what if it's like one of those Bermuda Triangle deals? Like, what if that's why it disappeared? But, as I got reading, there's some theories I wanted to go over. And that's the purpose of this episode. So, per usual, what we're talking about is just conspiracy. And none of this has been proven to be true. So don't come after us, please. This is all just made up, I guess, right?
It's all just in VR, guys.
Yeah,
so it's not real.
All of this is just conspiracy, alleged, not real. So anyways, now we'll go ahead and get started. The plane, obviously, like we said before, it hasn't been found. However, some of the wreckage, like some parts of it have been found. And they've washed up in, like, I think it was Africa, on the east coast of Africa.
Yeah.
Just plane parts, basically. So none of the actual, like, main portion of the plane or, like...
And some luggage.
Yeah, like, little things like that have washed up over time. That leads them to believe, obviously, it crashed into the water, right? Well... A lot of people think, oh, it was just an accident. It was an accident. But here's some weird shit, dude.
Yes.
So, my theory is that it was the captain of the plane. And this was like, a lot of other people think this too, because it makes the most sense when you go over the facts of the actual crash itself. Because obviously if we had like the actual plane and could do a full-on investigation, I'm sure we would be finding out a lot more. However, just the things leading up to it are what makes things suspicious, and things that happen during. So, the pilot himself, when the flight disappeared, it went off course. It did not go to Beijing. It took a turn, like, it left Malaysia, and then in the middle of the ocean, just, like, turned south or something, turned the opposite way. Goes back towards the Indian Ocean. And then all of a sudden, just loses contact with, what are we going to call it? The airport, ground control, air traffic control, loses
communications.
Yes. So they did do like a last minute check-in, you know, when they were like switching over. And they were like, peace out, Malaysia, like, good night, you know, they did this basic little thing. But if you listen from like the beginning of the flight, from the audio, to when they like checked out, it gets really weird. Because at the beginning, he's like... He's not talking like me and saying and doing that kind of stuff. He's literally like straight to the point. Malaysia Flight 370, we're off, we're out, blah, blah, blah. Just straight like that. Towards the end of the recording, like at the last time they checked in, he's like, Malaysia Flight 370. You know, he's doing stuff like that, and like the last 3 little bits of audio that you can hear.
Gun to his head, he's like, oh man.
Yeah, so there's like...
We're about to die.
Yeah, there's something weird going on, or he's like really stressed at this point, right? So, I still think the only logical explanation for any of this is that it had to be a murder-suicide by either the captain or a trained flight crew member of some type, you know, because the things that happen from this point on is not just something that a regular person would know. It's not just like normal things. It wasn't an accident that went off course. Like, he could have emergency landed at other places. Why keep going? Because once it turns, it goes all the way back over where land and then into the ocean and just continues to go, and then they just never see the flight again. Go ahead.
What if it landed on a deserted island that's like unpopulated, away from communications, you know, off the grid?
Yeah.
You know?
Could have. They searched, like, when they did their initial search, they did, like, search the entire area of the ocean that they could, you know, imagine the plane may have crash landed. But think about it. The ocean is a huge place. And not only is it big space-wise, but it goes down deeper than we could even imagine.
Yeah, you know how... have you ever heard about the Mariana Trenches?
Mm-mm.
It's basically a hole in the ocean that goes down, like hundreds of miles down. And to this day, this still has not been explored completely, because you know how the deeper you go, the more pressure there is on the sea, and there isn't like a machine capable of going down there. You know, like you said, the ocean is vast. What if it just got blown? Like, it went down, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, oh, it just went all the way down. What if it just got swept away with the ocean current, you know?
Yeah.
And it just went deep inside a hole, you know? Because, like you said...
It could be anywhere.
It could be anywhere, and plus, what is it? The Earth is covered 70% in water, and we've only, like, traversed, like, 35 to 40% of the actual ocean. But what about that other percentage that we still have not been in there, explored, and haven't seen?
Yeah. Well, like a lot of people say, we know more about space than we do about the ocean, which is insane, because we can just walk to the ocean. You know, you can just drive over there and get in and then explore things, but we know so little about it. And there's so many animals, and I don't want to call them animals, but so many sea creatures that they're still discovering to this day, that, like, what else is under there that we don't know of? How deep is it? Where does it go? Like, there's so many unanswered questions that it's an easy thing to just be like, okay, this isn't some Bermuda Triangle disappeared out of thin air and just teleported thing. Like, it could be in the ocean, right? So let me tell you some sus facts about when it got lost in the ocean. Okay? So, this is what leads me to believe it was the captain, or maybe even the co-pilot, right? One of the two. Is that the aircraft deliberately turned off course between what they call they call them FIRs, which are like designated areas of airspace where flight information service and alert service are provided to the plane itself. So it deliberately turned off course between those two areas. So not at the first one, not the second one, like literally right in between, so that they didn't have any communication, right? Turns.
Planned.
Yes, exactly. So like that, you're just gonna tell me that was random, like, and like in between air traffic control handover too. So then, at the same time as communications and transponders, okay, so at the same time that happened, their communication and transponder systems were disabled.
Ooh, like, so
intentionally disabled.
Okay, so here's the thing: someone to be able to do that, you have to know about a plane, right? Mm-hmm. So that means you have to either be studying to be a pilot or be an air communications airline specialist. Yes.
And so here's another thing about the captain when you say that, is that you obviously have to be an extremely experienced pilot or someone who specializes in that kind of thing. The captain had over 18,000 hours of flight experience total. Ooh. He started working at Malaysia Airlines in 81 or something like that, like a long time ago.
Homie was making at least like $600 to $700 the hour.
Yeah, and 8,000 of those hours out of the 18,000 were on a Boeing 777.
So that was his signature plane.
Yeah,
he knew it like the back of his hand.
Exactly.
And then he saw a mole and he's like, "Oh shit, that's new."
And other sus things that he did. So the profile of the final satellite pings in the first phase of the plane turning, and the first phase of disappearance, we'll call it, suggests that the aircraft was put into like an emergency electrical configuration. So you have to do that yourself. Like he switched it into like some emergency configuration. Okay, that was an accident. That was an oopsie by someone else. Like, that's weird. Then we know that the power was restored to like the cockpit of the plane, making it so that the instrumentation and like the autopilot and all that stuff was working again. Mm-hmm. But the transponder and the SATCOM was still disabled. Yeah, so we know that. This honestly is a brilliant ruse. You know what I mean? Like, if he actually did this, he put a lot of thought into it. It wasn't just like you know what I kind of want to do today? I think I'm going to kill all these people and myself. I think I might. Like, it obviously would have had to have been, allegedly, this is conspiracy, like I said, super planned out. You'd have had to practice this. The thing that he didn't prepare for, that he allegedly didn't prepare for, was that there were still, like, handshakes is what they call them. So there were still, like, check-ins with the plane that are automatic. Like, if things are disabled, it's, like, an automatic system that every 30 minutes goes, like, boop, just to, like, check and make sure the plane's not completely down, right?
Yeah.
So that was, like, pinging small locations for them and, like, giving them some feedback on the plane. What the handshakes ended up showing in the end are that the plane continued to fly into the Indian Ocean until it ran out of fuel. That's all they know. Is that the little handshakes just showed that the plane flew, and the last little bit of information they got is that the plane was out of fuel.
Oh, man. Okay, so just
And
from
over the-
what you're saying, I just came up with a theory in my head, right?
Okay.
Okay, so you said that everything was turned off, right? What if you know how I said gun to the head?
Mm-hmm.
There probably was a third crew member there. Like, you know, you could have been like when the co-pilots go down, this guy's like the emergency, like, jumps in there.
Yeah.
What if he had, like, a bad vendetta against whoever was on the plane?
Yeah.
What if there was, like, I'll say, like, this is all alleged, right? What if there was, like, government officials from China or Malaysia, and, the government sent some secret CIA or whatever they have over there in Malaysia or China, whatever their secret service is. What if they sent one up there and they're like, at this flight, at this time, I need you to go in there, kill the pilot and the co-pilot, and crash the plane. These people can't make it to Beijing because they know too much.
Yeah.
Or they're planning on building something.
Yeah. It could be, like, that's the worst part about this, is that the information we have, the information that authorities have given us, is, like, slim to none. We don't have any. We know the people, at least the information about the people on the plane that they've released. There was, like, it was 19 or 20 people that had gone on, like, an art type of exhibition together. It was like a calligraphy thing. They were all coming back from learning all this crazy stuff. They were going to land in Beijing. They never made it, obviously. So I can see it, like, at some point after that last call that the pilot made, incapacitated, and the co-pilot also was, or one or the other. Because for a flight attendant to know all this stuff and be able to do it, I don't know, that seems weird. Yeah. So it has to be one of them, is how I feel. Especially with the pilot having a billion times more experience than the co-pilot, it makes you think, like, what other explanation is there? Like, this is the conspiracy theory that most people agree with, because when you add up all the little facts that we do have, it makes the most sense compared to saying, oh, it was a random person on the plane. Because the reason the government in Malaysia and wherever else is doing the investigation, the reason that they said that, well, we don't think this was a terrorist attack, is because most terrorist attacks, they say, we did it, got your ass, like, we're taking responsibility. They're loud and proud about it, is what you're saying. It wouldn't just be like no terrorist organization has taken responsibility for it. So that's why they're saying we don't think it was this, like, it's just an accident, it's just a disappearance. Like, that's all they're saying at this point, is it's just a disappearance. And it only took 40 minutes. So 40 minutes after the flight started is when it took that turn and was, like, later. And then never been seen again, ever. So, I don't know. All of it's just really weird, right? But to me, when I think about it, I'm like, in my mind, it has to be one of the two, either the pilot or the co-pilot, because that, with the experience they have, it would make the most sense for all the things that were going on behind the scenes.
And they would know how to do that.
Then, here's another thing.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly, they would know how to do that, right? Well, they obviously searched the co-pilot and the captain's home. When they searched the captain's home, they found he has a flight simulator, like, which I'm assuming every pilot probably has a flight simulator.
They have to. I know that you need at least 90 hours of flight simulation before becoming a pilot.
That's a long time, dude.
Yeah, 90 hours, that's a lot.
Yeah, like, it doesn't sound like a lot when you think about it, but that's a lot of time.
Well, I mean, if you're a gamer, you'd be going through that like nothing. It's like in a week, you're like, hey, yo, I'm ready.
I'm done. Yeah, I'm ready to start flying. Well, so when they went through his flight simulator, they found, I think it was 4, we'll just say approximately 4 different flight paths going into the Indian Ocean in the same area. It wasn't the exact flight path that was taken by flight MH370, but it was in those same regions. So that is really suspicious, if you ask me. But the Malaysian government was like, he's clear. He's clear. Here's one thing about the Malaysian government, though, is that up until like June of 2023, even just attempted suicide was against the law. You would spend time in jail. It was against the law up until June 2023. So people wouldn't seek help for like suicidal thoughts and tendencies. So you wouldn't get to know, like, you don't necessarily know if your friend is struggling. Because if I tell you, like, Jesus, I'm hurting, I'm going to go to prison if you tell someone? So that's why there's like this mental health bill that was approved back in 2023, because they want people to be able to seek help if they're feeling bad without jail time, or worse. Like, who knows what even happens there.
Just let me put this in perspective for you, like what Miranda just said. Just imagine you get on your flight, right? You know how there's always the captain's always just there standing, like, as soon as you walk in, you say what's up to him, like, hey. You look at this dude, and this dude looks like the most miserable person in the world. He looks like he's about to unalive himself.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, maybe I shouldn't be on this flight, Yeah. What if homie gets an intrusive thought and he's like, you know what, I'm going to do a barrel roll. And then just crashes the plane, like, What if that could have been one of the options, This pilot was having, like you said, there was nothing about suicide. Like, you can't, it was illegal in Malaysia.
Yeah. What
if he's like, I need to get out of the Malaysian district, and then I can kill myself so I don't go to jail and my family doesn't get prosecuted?
Well, exactly. And then one of the other things that I read was also that, what if he committed suicide intentionally? Like, okay, well, I guess it's always intentional. If he did unalive himself, then his family wouldn't be able to get the benefits that he needed. So what if he planned this whole thing just to do that? Like, what if he still wanted his family to have something, like,
and that life insurance be real?
Yeah, and I know it's weird because now that I'm thinking about it, can pilots get life insurance? Let me Google that. I think there's because I actually don't know.
I feel like they have to through their work.
Well, actually, it's weird because certain careers you are not eligible for life insurance. Like, if you're in the military, you're not allowed to have life insurance. So that's why I'm wondering if can pilots get life insurance? Here we go. Let's find that out. Yes, pilots can and often do. Okay. While their profession can present unique considerations. Okay. Yeah, I guess it just depends on, like, what kind of pilot they are. But that's what I was thinking of. I'm like, I wonder if they can. It just says punishable by law. Okay, imprisonment for up to 1 year, a fine, or both if you attempt suicide in Malaysia up until 2023. And now it's been decriminalized.
Damn, that's crazy. Okay, without joking around, like, let's just say you're feeling like you want to end your life. You jump out your apartment building. You fall on the floor, right? But you don't die. You wake up in the hospital, and then you're chained to the hospital bed because you're going to go to prison.
Yeah.
Because you tried to kill yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think it has something to do with, I think it's like a cultural thing too, because they were all, I don't know how to touch on, this is a touchy subject, but in the Muslim culture, suicide is like extremely frowned upon, and most people in Malaysia are Muslim. And so that is, when I was reading about it, they said, like, because of cultural issues, they think that's why the Malaysian government didn't dig into it too much, because they're like, no.
I guess that makes sense, because, Catholics and Christians think the same thing. Yeah. If you kill yourself, you go to hell.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't know, I don't know much about the Muslim faith or culture. I just know that it's frowned upon. So I think that may have played a role in their investigation with saying, okay, well, we can't say that. We're not going to say that. It's against what we believe. So we're not going to say he did that. And then they tried to compare it to, like, other pilots' suicides where they intentionally, like, crashed a plane into a mountain or something, into a structure, where they keep saying, okay, well, why did he just continue to let the plane fly? Because we see that it flew over the Indian Ocean and then ran out of fuel, and that's why it crashed. We have no evidence or proof to support the fact that he, like, bumped into a structure of any kind. Because he was literally, if you look at this map, He was smack dab out here in the sea. And I'm sure they've checked all these little islands right here. It was just out there in the ocean, and that's the last little bit. It's been 11 years, and they have not found this plane. But just now in 2025, they are renewing the search, and they have $70 million to go towards the search. And it's starting again, like, towards the end of this year, I think, if it hasn't already. But there's a lot of different numbers and a lot of things they're talking about when it comes to that. But this might be the year we get answers, and I hope it is for this family, the families of these people who were just randomly lost at sea. And then for them to say, oh, it was just an accidental disappearance. No, it wasn't. They intentionally turned around in the middle of the South China Sea and went back to the Indian Ocean. Like, this is where they were going. They flew all the way from here to here. Right there is where the plane turned around and went all the way over to here, and that was the last sighting of the plane. On the handshakes.
What if, look, because I see the map is near Indonesia. Mm-hmm. What if the Indonesian government was like terrorist attack, shoot them down?
Yeah. Well, something else I read about that. Oh my gosh. So now that you bring that up, they said, like, right here, because they're like on the border between Thailand and Indonesia.
Yeah.
And they said, and like, look, Malaysia's down here. They said maybe they flew like the exact path that they flew right between the border, so that neither of the countries were like, that plane's not supposed to be there. They were like, that's in Thailand zone. You know, we're going to let them take care of it. And then the other, Thailand was like, ain't us, dude. Let them deal with it. And then, boom, just a disappearance. Isn't that, like, just insane to think? And it makes me afraid because stuff like this is happening in real life. Like, it's been 11 years and no one has any answers for what happened to over 200 people.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
And then the government's like, we don't have anyone to blame. It was a silly mistake. The F it was, dude. That was not a silly mistake. This had to be intentional when you look at all the facts. And I'm not saying this had to be the pilot or, you know, the co-pilot or anything, but it just makes the most sense when you put it into words and you look at the facts. I don't have another theory on it as far as if it was a crew member. They seem like the most likely candidates, one of them. But I don't know, dude. What do you think?
You know, it could also have been like a freak accident, like one of the engines went down and the pilot tried, you know, saving everyone.
Yeah. But
as I was going down, you know, probably more stuff was breaking, you know, power was failing, and that could explain, like, you know, the blackouts, like, you know, where the things went down, but then the check-ins kicked in. And when they lost communication, well, how could they ask for help if it was just the crew, and the crew was panicking, you know, trying to do everything they could, and then it just eventually hit the sea at a crazy speed and everyone died.
Yeah, that could be it too. And I'm actually going to look up.
Because, I mean, if you're going down on a plane, right, let's say the plane was going face towards the ocean at a craziest speed, you know, we'll say like 300-400 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then it hits the ocean, it would like squish it like a can.
Yeah. They
were looking for debris, but what if it was crushed beyond recognition, and what they're looking for is like a long tube, but that's not what it is anymore. Maybe it's just a square of like a cube of mashed parts. Well,
and if we think about it too, when it initially hit the water, I'm sure like parts did come, right? Like they found like a flap or something like that. I don't know. They found like
part of the wing.
Yeah, they found like parts of things. But then, like we were talking about earlier, when things go down too deep in the sea, there's pressure. So imagine it went down megalodon deep, you know, and then it just got crushed and they're never going to find it. Like, that's a possibility.
Just put into like the submarine that went down with all those people, and it imploded, right? Mm-hmm. When they found it, it looked nothing like how it did originally, just because of the sea pressure and all that.
Sorry.
The plane the planes are made of like hardened aluminum. It's not like super strong metal.
Yeah.
You know, the ocean's way stronger than any kind of aluminum, and could have just, you know, destroyed it. Yeah. Simple as that.
Yep. Well, the other thing that makes you believe it's intentional, right, is, okay, so the plane was at 45,000 feet. And then it all of a sudden descended to 23,000 feet, was making exaggerated turns, sharp turns, went off course, obviously. The other thing is that they, based on the data that they were receiving from the plane and from the handshakes and stuff, the plane was mechanically fine. It was operating fine. It was intentionally turned off. It was intentionally put into all these modes and then intentionally put into autopilot going over the sea. So, until it ran out of gas, right? Do you think, like, this, other people have theories to say, like, okay, well, what if the plane was depressurized and everyone inside died? And that's why it just kept driving straight. But that still doesn't give any explanation for why it randomly turned in the exact spots it turned off all the comms, turned off all this, and then went that way, and then just autopiloted until it ran out of gas. Do you think everyone was gone before it hit the ground? Or not the ground, the water, and maybe everyone had already died in there? Do you think the pilot was just like, you guys are going to wait until the last second? You can wait it out, be scared for the next few hours, and then we're going to watch the plane fall and we're all going to die together? Like, there's so many theories that could have happened that it's scary. It's really scary.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, but like what you just said, what if everyone was already dead before the plane crashed? That would make a lot more sense, because I feel like in that emergency, you know, people would be turning on their phones, taking it off airplane mode, trying to send out massive text, something, right? Emergency signal, satellite radios, you know, anything at that point.
Well, and you know, planes have Wi-Fi these days, and like, when I went to the UK, when I flew, I was able to text you guys through WhatsApp while I was on the plane for $2. I was able to text you guys the entire trip, the entire 13-hour flight. So, like, it's, people kept saying, too, like, I think there was rumors at first with people saying, oh, well, people on the plane texted their family. That was debunked. That never happened. They never received, like, people's family said they did receive texts, but it wasn't from the actual passengers. They received texts from Malaysia Airlines. And I pulled up the text because I want you guys to hear it. The text that people got, like your emergency contact and stuff, you know, they were texting people's families. Malaysia Airlines said, Malaysia Airlines deeply regrets that we have to assume beyond any reasonable doubt that MH370 has been lost and that none of those on board survived. As you will hear in the next hour from Malaysia's Prime Minister, we must now accept all evidence suggests the plane went down in the southern Indian Ocean. And that was it. That's how people found out that their family members were gone. And then they just, that was their little bit of information before it was everywhere.
Man, that's crazy to think that instead of being, you know, like, we deeply regret what we're about to say, or we apologize, they're just like, the plane's gone, everyone's dead. Accept the evidence, you know, that's it.
We found what we found.
Sorry.
Watch the news. So, that text really threw me off when I read it, because I was like, that's what they got? That's the info they got. Like, I just can't imagine being like, oh, my mom's flying in today, and then receiving a text saying, the airline says sorry. Your mom said, evidence is evidence. Bye. That's it. Like, that's just crazy. That's just wild. Well, other conspiracy theories. Let's kind of hit that now, because the most reasonable one, in my opinion, is the one that we just talked about, is that a crew member, whom if I had to guess would be one of the two pilots, right, were responsible for what happened. And let me jump back to the pilot really quick. We didn't even mention their names, but the actual captain, he has been, like, financially stable. They didn't find any proof anywhere that he had ever, like, had treatment for any type of mental illness. Like, apparently he was, like, sound. So to everyone, that's another reason the government's like, no, he was fine. He went through all this, you know, stuff. He was financially sound. He had a wife, blah, blah, blah. He was good to go. That doesn't mean anything. So, I don't know. The other conspiracy theory that I wanted to touch on, which it was wild, it is, like, really far-fetched, and it has since been debunked by, you know, officials and everything, but there was a guy on Twitter, and his handle was strayed away, and his name was Ty. Well, I'm talking about him like in past tense, like he's dead. He's not. He's still alive. But he had posted, so he had received a weird voicemail. And this was in 2018, so 4 years after. And it was like within the same month of like the anniversary of the Malaysia airline flights, right?
Yeah.
So he had received voicemails and texts saying weird stuff. The voicemail left him something in like the, it was like the military alphabet, like saying like alpha, beta, this.
Yeah, the NATO communications.
Yeah, NATO, that's what it is. And it was saying, basically it came out to say like something about SOS, danger. It ended up saying a lot of stuff about like there was something in there that said they're not human and stuff. Yeah, it was like creepy stuff. So he posted this on Twitter. It went absolutely like viral. It went crazy. Some of the texts that they sent, they ended up putting through and finding that it was coordinates, and the coordinates matched up with like fairly close to the last place that the plane had like pinged in, or we believe that it may have wrecked around that area. So this got people going crazy because they were like, why would this random guy get this, right? Yeah. First off, that should have been everyone's first clue. But it like triggered a lot of people, which makes sense because it got a lot of media attention. It got to the point where like authorities stepped in and they actually investigated it. They traced the text messages and calls back to like a hotel, and they ended up saying, oh, it was just like a hoax, it was a prank, and that's literally how it ended. Then this Thai guy changes his like Twitter handle. He went on like Shane Dawson's podcast. He did a couple interviews, but in his interviews after like people got serious about it, he was like, this has gone too far. This is too much. Like, and he never said it was a joke. He just kept saying it went too far. This is unlikely,
Yeah. He was trying to like break away suspicion from himself, probably.
Yes, because he lied and then it actually went viral. But I mean, that got people talking in that time about, could it have been something else? Like,
what if it was, because I have been seeing this because a lot on it. It was like a ghost plane. That's what they were saying. And then when you think about that, what if the military does a lot of stuff that they don't report, that they don't say, that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. But what if they sent a jet? Like I said, what if there was powerful people in there that we don't know about, but it was like I said, like between China and Malaysia, and they just sent a jet, shoot down the plane.
Yeah.
And then it went down, and then they probably were like, okay, we need to recover the plane right now. Mm-hmm. Get everything out as soon as possible, and then like that's the reason it can't be found. And when they shot it down, parts of the wing probably broke off, and that's what they could find.
Yeah. Well, see, even to me, if they had an idea of where it crashed, like we did a previous episode on military animals and how they use sea lions and dolphins and sharks and all these kind of animals to detect things underwater and find things. Like, you're telling me in 11 years there's been absolutely no way via satellite, via any type of scanner, anything that can go to the ocean, including animals, that nothing can just go down there and look? Like, and I know the ocean is like tremendously bigger than we can even imagine and comprehend in our own mind, but it is just, they did have some sort of check-in with the plane, like whether the pilot knew about it or not, or the crew member, whoever, they were still having those handshakes, so they do know a rough area of where the plane was, and there's nothing. So like maybe like that could be a good theory, like maybe it was an inside job type of thing. Maybe the people on the plane were important. Maybe it was a test run. We never know, but like something is really suspicious about it. And I have a feeling this next search is going to find something, and they're going to be like, nothing big, guys. It just crashed.
Oh, man. Like, I hope they find it so we can
have more answers.
And then also so the all those families can have some closure. Mm-hmm. Because I'm pretty sure there's still families and, all these people that probably have private investigators or still, like, to this day hope that they get an answer for their missing family members.
Yeah. Well, it's not fair to them to not have any answer and not know anything at all. at all. Because there is, of course, like, the facts, right? There's the facts of what we know. We know how many people were on the plane. We know the names of the captains, or the captain and the co-pilot, the first officer. Another thing that was weird is 4 months after, 3-4 months, whatever, after this happened, there was another Malaysia Airlines flight. It was Flight 17, and it was shot down by Russian-backed forces while flying over Ukraine in July of 2014.
So you're telling me 2 flights fell went down back to back?
Yeah, and one, they knew what happened, and the other, they're saying they don't know. But if 4 months later there was an actual, like, Russian military-backed attack on a Malaysian aircraft, that could have something, to do with each other. It could have something in common. But I don't know. All of it's just really weird to me. And the fact that this is even, like, a real thing that we're talking about just blows my mind.
I don't know. It's definitely an unsolved mystery.
Yeah.
There's these cases go on for years and years and years, and you get one speck of evidence, and sometimes it solves it all, or sometimes it just throws it back 5 steps back.
I'm reading that right here. So it says, Australian Transport Safety Bureau initially proposed that it was a hypoxia event, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier. Everyone just, they weren't able to get oxygen on the plane, so everyone just died like that. But why would they think that? I guess, like, they can say that and they can tell us stuff, but it doesn't explain everything else that happened. Okay, everyone died on the plane from this.
That would make sense, right? Yeah. If the plane was damaged and there was, like, a hole in the plane and all the oxygen got sucked out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that if they throw in that, then that kind of concludes that there was an attack on the plane.
Yeah. Or that, it can probably happen, I'm sure, if there's, like, something wrong with, and the plane gets, system? Or it gets, like, depressurized somehow, or something happens with the oxygen. But that wouldn't explain how the plane got turned. A human would have had to do that. Or some kind of entity would have had to do it. You can't just everyone die and then the plane's like, you know what? The plane by itself is like, I'm going to turn.
The plane isn't autonomous,
Yes, it's like the plane's like, okay, now that everyone's dead, I'm actually going to turn. I'm going to turn off this whole system. I'm going to take control. I'm going to fly that way until I run out of gas and fall in the ocean. Like that.
There's no AIs in planes.
Yeah, like this isn't. None of it would make
Syrian, 500 feet, I need you to turn left.
Yeah, like that makes no sense. But, well, tell us what you guys think. This is definitely a weird case, and we still don't have answers. So.
And we probably won't.
Yeah, I don't think we ever will either. I agree. But.
And if you're listening to us on Spotify, make sure you download the episode. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe.
And we out.
Yeehaw, brother.